Here we go. And now we'll explain lighting via HDRI backgrounds. So here what we have, now we're actually going to render something. Yay, rendering. There are no light objects on in this document right now. There's no sun. The heliodon is turned off. In fact, now's a good time to show you this window. This is the visualization window. It's going to show you any lights that are currently not on, but visible in classes or layer settings in the document. So if I switch this back very quickly, and I go back to the heliodon and shadows, one heliodon is going to appear here. There it is. It's another way you can select it quickly. And I can turn the heliodon on and off. If I'm in a save view that doesn't have any light objects, like HDRI, this becomes blank. So there's no actual light objects in here, but I still have light. And where's it coming from? This is coming from what's called a RenderWorks background. In RenderWorks, you have the option for a background, and I believe none background. So yes, this is a very simple, this is just the simple none background that we've made. We've just made it, it's white, there's no color from it, just a little light comes from it. But if we want, we can add backgrounds that not only add images, but they also add different color that's coming to it. So we'll go ahead and just double click this. That'll apply it to the scene. You can see it in OpenGL, but then it'll actually render it. And now you can see here, not only do we have stuff outside now, there's a different mood to it. It's sort of this is just a midday one, so it's one of the more vanilla options. We also have a few other little more unusual ones. I think Luis has prepared a few Martian sunscapes. There we go. So in here you can see it changes the mood of the scene without doing much work. All I did was double click on it and I changed the sky. I mean, you know, here we have Valentine's Day. It's very easy to do. You don't need to do a lot of work, and it's very efficient. Because the light's not coming from a source, it's sort of like how ambient lighting works. This rendered very quickly. Did you see that? Rendering complete, 7 seconds. It didn't take long, and I got a good idea of what the mood of the model is going to be just by doing that quick rendering. This render that we're in now is, I believe, fast RenderWorks or a very quick rendering mode, which we'll cover shortly. That's an HDRI background. So now a little bit about backgrounds. Backgrounds, there are a couple types of backgrounds and a couple systems you might use in order to show backgrounds in images. There's a simple image background, which is just an image that sits infinitely away from the model, so you can't get to it no matter how much you zoom in. There's panoramic backgrounds, which is basically, so if you've ever watched a 360 video or taken a panoramic image with your phone, it's basically stretched, but it's distorted in a circle. That's what that is. So if you went to an existing condition, if you went to the lot where you know your building's going to be built, you could take an image of everything around that building in a photosphere or a panoramic, then import that into Vectorworks so that you could have your model sort of in situation and show where it actually is going to be. It looks really cool if you get it set up right. HDRI is the background we were just showing, so these are simple where they're actually doing light as well as the color of the background. And you can, of course, do one or two colors very simply. It's not too terribly complicated. The first one I'm going to show you is a simple fixed image. So now this looks relatively okay. We're just in OpenGL. It's nothing complicated. But if I were to start to move, this breaks down pretty quickly. All this is a simple image background. It's physically there, so I can actually move all the way up to the image and go around behind it. There's my sun, by the way. That's part of the physical sun and sky. So that sun object is actually beaming down on us right now. But this background is very simple and overly so. It's not going to do what we want. It's only going to work sort of, this is the smoke and mirrors part of rendering. This only works as long as I keep my view like that. There we are. If I look up, I'm going to notice a problem. Look left and right, the matrix reveals itself. So you don't want to do that too often. It's very useful if you just have a picture. You don't have to do any work for it. Just stick it behind it. But if you're going to have a lot of shots taken from multiple angles, generally you don't want to do that. You don't want to have a situation where you just have the image on one side. Now we saw a moment ago there was the add physical sky. There we go. So here's the physical sun and sky. And now this is where the heliodon links to a background. If you use a physical sun and sky, if I go here, I'll go to visualization and didn't mean to close that. I'll select my heliodon now. If I change these colors, I can use the warmer colors. If I change these now, the whole background will behave differently. And it will also be linked if I choose to move the time later in the day. So if I change this and I make it 6 p.m. Here's the physical sky option. It's very simple. It just shows clouds. And there's no ground in a physical sky background. So generally you don't want to do views that are particularly high. And you'll wonder why it's dark. It's because our heliodon happened to be set to 6 p.m. If I set this to, let's say, 9 a.m., which I'm pretty sure is daytime, we'll wait for it to re-render very quickly. And you'll see that the light is up. The sun is up here. We'll change. Get outside the building. And now you'll see there's no sun in this particular one, but there is a source of light. See that dot there? That's where the sun's coming from. Physical sun and sky doesn't show the sun because, of course, if you look at the sun, you're going to blind yourself, and that's generally not useful for rendering. So it's turned down a little bit from reality. But if I go ahead and I freeze, and now you'll notice now this is in 2016 only. If I freeze, now it's going to redo that render. While I'm using a 3D connection or while I'm using walkthrough, it doesn't try to keep re-rendering, so I can interrupt it by just going to move again. And then let go. I don't have to hit escape to cancel it. I could just have escape and cancel the rendering right here, but you can also just move and do anything, and then the render will start to re-render afterwards. The first time that happens, it's not happening for me because I already said yes to it. The first time you go to move during a render, it's going to ask you, do you want to re-render the scene or do you just want to revert to OpenGL or wireframe? You get to pick that. I've said yes, and then I checked the box for always do it. That's why it's doing that. That about does it for RenderWorks backgrounds.